Hello, everybody. Welcome, and thank you for joining us on Virtual JCC. Today, we have a very special session. We are learning how to make hummus and burnt eggplant babaganoush with Carolyn Cohen. Carolyn Tanner Cohen has owned and operated Delicious Dish Cooking School since 2002, a boutique cooking school which specializes in whole food home cooking, meal planning, recipe developing, and healthy eating. Her original recipes are foolproof, user-friendly, and winners every time. Today, she's going to teach us how to make hummus and burnt eggplant babaganoush. Yum! Right here on Virtual JCC. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Carolyn.
Thank you, Amy. That was such a great introduction. I really like it.
Okay, so
you're very welcome. So I'll just tell you a little bit about myself so everybody knows. I've been running Delicious Dish Cooking School since, like you said, since 2002. Can everybody see me? I hope the camera angles are good, but anyway, it's always been around healthy home cooking and recipe development and feeding your family in a very family type setting. So it's not restaurant style food, it's just good food to bring home to your family. I have great recipes every week. I send out, if you get the newsletter, on deliciousdish.ca, and I have a whole host of virtual cooking classes coming up that I'm running all the time. And you could start seeing them on Instagram, which is Delicious Dish Cooking. And again, the website is deliciousdish.ca. So we're going to start today with making hummus at home. There's all kinds of controversy around, do we use canned chickpeas? Do we have to boil them? Do we have to peel the chickpeas? So my school of thought is you're going to do what you're going to do, and you want to make this easy so that you can make this often, okay? So you could go ahead and open up a can of chickpeas and drain and rinse them. I love using these, believe it or not, they're Italian chickpeas, and they come in a jar. I've drained them and I've rinsed them. And what I love about these is they're huge. Okay, they're really big, and they're almost like overcooked, even though they taste fantastic in salads too, but they're really soft and they have no real bite to them. So they're perfect chickpeas for using for hummus. And that's what we're going to use today. So these are drained and rinsed, and I'm going to show you the rest of my ingredients. So I have the chickpeas here. I have 2 cloves of garlic here. And I have some freshly squeezed lemon juice. I've already done that. And a lemon, in case I want more, with a juicer. And of course, tahini. And I'm using this brand, which I really like. It's by Afba, I think. Afba is a great brand. I have some cumin, and I have some cayenne if you want. I very rarely put it in. And very importantly is I have some ice water. Now, I'm not going to do a lot of measuring here, because it's better if I teach you how to make hummus without measuring, okay? And then, of course, we're going to plate it, and which is very exciting too, just showing you how it should be plated. So you're going to use your food processor, and the first thing you do when you start the hummus is you put the cloves of garlic in a dry food processor. If the garlic goes into the food processor with all the other ingredients, it's going to get lost in there. So I don't know if anyone could chat to me, but my camera looks a little bit high. So let me know if I should angle the camera a little bit differently. All right, so the food processor is going to go on, and you're going to turn the food processor. You're going to close the lid. You're going to power it up and give it a little whirl. Now you're going to hear it, and then when you really stop hearing the chopping, that's when you know the garlic is chopped enough. Okay, so I'm going to turn that off, and then I'm just going to pretty much throw everything in. Okay, so here goes the chickpeas. And again, they're drained and rinsed. So even though they were back in the jar, I have drained and rinsed them, okay? Now, you're going to use about a half a cup to 3/4 of a cup of tahini per can of chickpeas, okay? So I know what this looks like, so I'm just going to pour it in. And then I'm going to use the juice of 1 lemon to start, okay? And that's about 3 or 4 tablespoons of lemon juice. And then I'm just going to start by putting a very small amount of water in there. Now, remember, it's ice water, and you want to use ice water when you're making hummus. It closes the fat cells, and it allows it to blend a little bit better. Don't put the ice cubes in. So just a couple tablespoons of ice water, and then cumin to taste. So I actually like a lot of cumin, so I put like about a half a teaspoon to start. And then I also put some kosher salt, which I'm just gonna grab. Just one of my little tips, I keep kosher salt in a little salt cellar, and I always keep like an old little junky half teaspoon measure in here. So if a recipe says a teaspoon, I have it. I don't have to dig up my teaspoons, okay? So I'm just gonna put about a quarter teaspoon of kosher salt, for now, and that's gonna go in there. And then you wanna give it a really good process. So don't worry so much about the taste right now. Just let that rip. Okay, get a spatula. And this is where the fun part begins. So I'm gonna show you the hummus not ready, okay? I always like to show people hummus that's not ready. So look at that texture, that's terrible, okay? That's way too thick and way too chunky. But what you're gonna do at this point is you're gonna taste it, okay? You're gonna decide, I need to thin this down. Is this lemony enough or is it not lemony enough? So for me, it's not lemony enough. So I'm gonna start by thinning it down with lemon juice. So I put about another 1 or 2 tablespoons of lemon juice in there. And I know I'm gonna need a little bit more water, okay? You don't wanna put too much liquid in there because you wanna make sure that it's the right consistency and you have wiggle room to change your flavors, okay? Being the lemon. So one more little whirl. I'm gonna give it a good scrape down because it gets really stuck underneath the blade. I'm gonna show you what that looks like. I'm gonna take this off right now. Hang on. Coming. All right, so that's what it looks like so far. So the consistency is starting to look better. It's still way too thick and way too chunky, okay? But actually what we'll do now also is we'll give it like a little taste. Never lick a knife. So that to me is perfectly lemony. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to thin it because I know I need a little bit more water. I'm going to thin it down with a little bit more. I know I need it to be thinner, so it's lemony enough, so I thinned it with water. And I dropped an ice cube in there, but nobody needs to know that. Okay, give it a good whirl. How's that going so far? If you have any questions, shoot them out. I don't see any, so if you're asking, somebody let me know how I could possibly see a question. Okay, then I'm gonna give it one more lift underneath and I'm gonna show you what the consistency looks like. So there we go. So let me show you how that's dripping. Do you see it's still a little bit granular? You don't want that. So it needs to be processed a little bit more. I'm gonna get another spoon to taste it. Okay, so the taste to me is perfect, which means I'm just gonna give it a little bit of a process to get it very, very smooth because I like the hummus when it's really, really smooth. I'll just move that out of the way. And now I'm gonna get some garnishes for my hummus. Don't serve hummus in a small little bowl. Serve it on some sort of a plate, okay? So here we go. Take your time. Can you use a Vitamix blender? That is a great question. Yes, you can. You could use, the question is, everybody, can you use a Vitamix blender? I hope you can hear me. This process is pretty loud. The only thing I don't love about the blender, especially the Vitamix, which is my favorite blender, but it aerates the hummus a lot, so it makes it fluffier. And if you're fine with that texture, then that's fine. Just remember that you're gonna have to scrape down your blender as well, okay? Because the difference between a blender and a food processor is the blender brings things down, pushes things up, brings things down, pushes things up. And actually the blender blades are not all that sharp, but the food processor blades are sharp. So it's a different action, and yes, it most certainly works. Okay, so that to me is a great consistency. It's very smooth. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take the blade out and scrape your blade off. Okay, I need this blade one more time, so I'm just gonna give it a little rinse because we're gonna make the Babaganoush soon, so I need the blade again. Now, remember, these flavors are very similar to one another, so don't worry about washing it with soap. you don't need to because the flavors are very similar. So don't go crazy when you have to wash out your blender. Now I'm going to put all the hummus right into the center of my plate. Okay, don't spread it out yet. Okay, it's a beautiful consistency. It's a little bit pourable, but not liquidy. Okay, hang on. And then this is how I like to decorate it. I'm going to take a cutting board. Okay, if we have any other questions, let me know. I'm ready to answer them. And then I'm going to take a little bit of parsley. I'm off the screen here, but I'm just digging into my parsley plant. And I'm going to chop some parsley. Okay. Chop the parsley pretty small. Get rid of any larger stems. You don't need those. Okay. We got the parsley. Parsley's really beautiful on top of the hummus. And I hope you have some pita ready. I don't, actually. All right. And then I also have a little bit of paprika here. That's just for fun. And then I have za'atar, right from Israel, actually. And I have some toasted pine nuts. I always keep toasted pine nuts on hand. In fact, I bring home the whole bag of pine nuts. I toast them all, and then I store them in a container in my freezer. I don't know if everybody knows this, but all nuts and seeds live in the fridge or freezer, okay? So here we go. I'm gonna take the back of a large spoon, and I'm gonna just make a nice well into the center of the hummus. Hold on, I don't want to waste any of that precious stuff. Okay. Make a nice well and few little swirls. And you want to do that because the olive oil needs a place to land. Okay. And then what I'll do is I'll give a good drizzle of olive oil around the plate, like around the outside of the hummus, and all the way through the little nooks and crannies in here. Because the olive oil is so delicious. You want to make sure you're using a really delicious fruity olive oil. And I have a little bit of parsley here. I kind of like to leave the parsley not everywhere because what if you don't like parsley, right? And then I have a little bit of paprika and maybe a little bit more paprika there. And you could put some zrug in the center, some spicy stuff, or a little harissa would work too. And I love the za'atar. So I'm gonna actually, what I really love to do, because my family loves the za'atar, I'm gonna make two little pools of olive oil on the side, and I'm gonna put an extra za'atar right in the sides here, because we like to dip the bread into the za'atar. Okay, so the za'atar is going right into the middle here. And then I'm going to, my family loves pine nuts, and I know they're not like totally traditional on the hummus, but I like them. And then there we go. That's the traditional hummus, plated beautifully. Hope you could see that. Okay, so I'm going to move that right here so you could keep looking. Looks delicious. Thank you. So thank you for the feedback. I feel like I'm talking to the wall, so I really appreciate that. And now we're going to make something else. So is everybody ready? Is anybody actually cooking alongside me? Because if you are, and I'm moving too fast, I'm happy to slow down. Okay. So I'll slow down for 1 second. I'll just talk to you a little bit. But normally what I do every day, I'm teaching virtual cooking classes that you cook alongside me. So I send out a grocery list well in advance on my website, and then you actually make dinner with me. So I have a program called Cook Dinner Together. And what I'll do is I'll put out the meals for the week. It's kind of like a meal prep kit, but you get to do all the cooking. I put out the information for the week with the whole grocery list, and then 5 o'clock we come on through Instagram or Zoom, and we actually make dinner together. So it's kind of like a little community of people making dinner together every night, and it's really fun. If you want any more information about that, we could do that. Oh, Cheryl is saying the classes are awesome. Thank you. All right, so now we're gonna do the babaganoush. So I'm assuming you're not doing this part with me, so I'm gonna walk you through it. I call this burnt eggplant babaganoush, and it's very important that you really, really fire up those eggplants, okay? So it's not like you're putting the eggplant on the barbecue for like a little shine here and a little shine there. You're actually torturing this eggplant. So it could take about 20 minutes to actually properly cook an eggplant. So this is like a medium-sized eggplant. What you do is you poke holes in it with a fork or with the tip of a knife or something like that. You place it down on your barbecue, and I will talk about if you don't have a barbecue, don't worry. You put it down on your barbecue, you set your timer for like 10 minutes, then you go out there and you flip it over, another 10 minutes, you flip it over, and there's 4 sides to an eggplant, okay? If you don't have a barbecue, you could always put it under your broiler. You could put a cookie sheet under, you put the eggplants on a cookie sheet, and you put the broiler on, not touching the actual element, maybe 1 rack lower, and you could do it that way. The other way to do it is if you have a flame on your stovetop, you could actually put the whole entire eggplant right directly on your gas range. Just keep it a little bit lower heat and sort of move it around a little bit. Keep your fan on. All right, so there's the eggplant. Before I start touching the eggplant, I want to make sure that I don't have to wash my hands 100 times, so I'll show you. Here is a clean food processor. Yes, believe it or not, I have 2 bowls to my food processor. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm going to take about 3 cloves of garlic. Okay, so here's some cloves of garlic, and they are, hold on, I'm just looking for my knife. There we go. The blade is going in, and the 3 cloves of garlic are going in, and I'm going to give that a little pulse too. Okay, so in that goes. Okay. Remember, the garlic always goes first. So listen to it. You'll know it's ready. I can't hear it anymore. You turn off the processor, and then I'm going to add some parsley. Okay. Just as a little tip here, I keep parsley I wash my parsley just by swooshing it around in water like this for a bunch of times. Okay. I get it as clean as possible. And then I store it in a little cup, like a little drinking cup. And the drinking cup is full of water till about here. And then I put that plastic bag that you bought the parsley home in, and I drape it over the parsley, and I leave my parsley at room temperature. And I do that for basil, and I do that for mint as well. And you could actually see in the corner here, oh no, you can't because the parsley's in the way and it's so hairy. Okay, so there's my mint and there's my basil. So I do the same thing, okay? So I take some parsley and I'm gonna put the parsley in there with the garlic. And by the way, if it's not clean enough for you, you could clean it after. You don't have to wash the whole thing and make sure it's perfectly dry. But if you are washing it ahead of time, make sure you spin it around and you reline them up, okay? Because the roots have to sit in the water. Okay, so you could clean it as you need it as well. All right, so we're just gonna give that a whirl. Now, food processor does not like to chop parsley when it's wet. So you put the garlic and you put the parsley in before you put anything else in there. And that's why I haven't touched my eggplants, because I wanted to keep my hands clean. But I'm gonna introduce you to the rest of the ingredients that are going in here. Okay, so hopefully you guys have printed up the recipes. So what I'm putting in here is I've already put the 2 or 3 cloves of garlic, and I put in the handful of parsley leaves. I'm going to put in salt. That's kosher salt, a teaspoon of kosher salt. And ladies and gents, a teaspoon of kosher salt is not the same thing as a teaspoon of sea salt or table salt. Kosher salt is very, very light and fluffy and does not weigh the same, and therefore is not as dense as sea salt. So make sure that if your recipe says a teaspoon of salt and you don't know what they're talking about, they're likely not talking about kosher salt. So you got to almost double your kosher salt for every teaspoon of regular table or sea salt. So my recipe says a teaspoon of kosher salt. That means it's measured and weighed with kosher salt. So I have a teaspoon of kosher salt. I have a half a teaspoon of regular paprika. I have a half a teaspoon or a quarter teaspoon of smoked paprika. And I'm actually going to show you what that looks like. You could buy smoked paprika from McCormick's or whoever makes your spices, but often it'll come in like a nice little pretty can or container like this. If you don't love a real smoky taste, then don't put as much. And then I have a quarter teaspoon of cumin as well. Okay, and you have a little bit of olive oil is going to go in there, and a little bit of tahini and some lemon juice. Okay, so first we're going to start off with the eggplant. So you take your eggplant and you peel the eggplant. you either peel the skin away from the flesh, or you could peel the flesh away from the skin. So I will show you what that means. I always like to sort of like jimmy my thumb between the skin and the flesh, and you just take out the flesh. Now, I'll give you a great tip. Eggplants, when in season, are way better than eggplants when they're not in season. So when they're in season, which is usually the end of the summer, you can barbecue a whole bunch of eggplants, okay? And then you peel the eggplant away from the skin, and then you could put the eggplant flesh in a baggie in your freezer and freeze it. And I usually just label the bag 1 eggplant. And then I know that the next time I want to make this babaganoush recipe, I have the eggplant flesh ready to go. Okay, so that's a great little idea. The other nice thing is you don't have to throw away this eggplant skin. I am, because I left all the stickers on it, but you could save the eggplant skin. It's nice and it's charred and a smoky taste. And you could add it to a hummus or a tahini, and it'll color your tahini or hummus in the blender, and the aroma of the tahini or hummus will be very eggplant and smoky, and of course the color will be almost black. So these are, I had also 2 smaller little eggplants which I barbecued. I just had them in my house, so I figured the more the merrier. And in they go. And let me know, guys, if you have any other questions. I'm happy to answer them as we roll here. So again, like I would buy a lot of eggplants, because once you're grilling eggplants and it takes a long time, you might as well grill 10 as opposed to 2. So all you do is you take the flesh of the eggplant and you put it in a Ziploc bag, and then you label it, and it just says like flesh of 1 eggplant. Okay, so my hands are getting washed, and then I'm going to put in all my spices. So I have my salt, I have my paprika, and I have my smoked paprika. You put in as much as you like, and cumin, and I have about 4 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I have 3 or 4 tablespoons of tahini. So again, not something you really need to measure, but 1, 2, 3, okay, of tahini. All right, and then I have a couple tablespoons, 2 tablespoons of freshly squeezed lemon juice. So there's 1 and there's 2. And I'm gonna give this a little bit of a whirl too. I just gotta find my lid. Now, that should not be smooth, okay? So that should be a little bit chunkier. You want a nice thick consistency for your baba ganoush. And before I start to show you how to plate it, I'm just gonna wipe up this counter so I have a nice space for you and to display these beautiful dips. Okay, and we'll cut up again some parsley. Actually, there's probably enough parsley in there. We don't need to do that. Get a beautiful bowl that's presentable, and out goes the blade, and in goes the smoked burnt eggplant baba ganoush. Now, actually, I forgot an ingredient in here. I think I forgot an ingredient in here. No, I didn't. But what I was going to say is you can, actually, I'm not even going to say it. I'm going to show it to you. It's a little bit of a gift. Hold on 1 second. Bear with me for a second. I'm going to show you a neat little trick, which I wasn't really ready for. Okay. This is just something I sometimes put on my eggplant dip. Oh my God, these jars are so hard to open. Hold on, I got to rinse it. Let that just sit with some hot water. Okay, in the meantime, I'll let that open. I'm going to do the same idea. I'm going to swirl it around, okay, and make a little dent and give a little bit of olive oil again all over it. And again, I'm going to go in there with the pine nuts because I love them and they look good. And a little bit more chopped parsley. Okay, just get some parsley chopped over here. And I didn't show you my favorite thing that I'm going to put on there, which I did not add to the recipe. And mostly because I don't want to freak people out that they don't have it. Okay, but I'll show you. I'm going to put a little bit of date sealan. So date sealan is the same thing as date molasses or date syrup. And it's kind of like maple syrup to Israel, okay? Or maple syrup to the Middle East. There's no maple trees in Israel, and they do have a ton of dates. So it's their version, and it's amazing, and it tastes really good in here. So I'll just give that a little bit of drizzle also on the Babaganoush, just for a little bit of sweetness, just on the ends here. And you would not believe the beautiful taste of a little bit of date sealan on the Babaganoush, okay? Because sometimes I'll put a little squeeze of honey in there, but really it's not the best match. All right, and there we go. Looks good. Thank you, Fred. I really appreciate that. Okay, and there, if I tip it, look how beautiful that is. So we have the hummus and the Babaganoush with a little bit of date sealan, which is not on the recipe, but I encourage it. The other nice thing you could put on these, both of these, is because salt is a flavor enhancer. Think about salt as turning up the volume of the food you're making, okay? So if you want to turn up that volume of the za'atar and turn up the volume of the smokiness and just turn on the lights of your dish, we are going to sprinkle a little bit of Maldon sea salt or flaky sea salt just around the top. And every bite that somebody takes, they'll taste that za'atar and they'll taste that paprika and the pine nuts and the beautiful chickpeas, and sprinkling it directly on the date syrup. And you'll really get a great flavor of that date syrup if you sprinkle a little bit of salt over it. Okay, and I think that's it. So again, guys, come cook with me. And every day, almost every day, we can make dinner together. It's a lot of fun. We have a glass of wine, we have a good time, and you'll get all the ingredients. Just go on my website. Does it matter which type of eggplant you use? I typically, Daphne, I typically use like the regular globe eggplant, but it does matter how you choose your eggplant. So I'm glad you asked that. You want to pick up an eggplant that actually feels heavier than it looks. So you're like a little bit surprised of how heavy that one eggplant is. And that means it's dense, it's not full of air, it's not dried out, and it's nice. An older eggplant has more seeds than a younger eggplant. So I tend to find an eggplant that's sort of like medium size. I'd rather barbecue 2 or 3 eggplants than 2 massive eggplants. So, but in terms of which type of eggplant, I wouldn't use Japanese eggplants for this. There's not enough flesh in there. They're a pain to peel. And I wouldn't use those tiny little Italian eggplants. They're also a pain and hard to peel. So I would use a nice globe eggplant of a decent size, like a medium size eggplant. Okay, with my grocery order this week, they sent me these little eggplants and I had to reorder because they were too small. I wasn't going to get enough flesh out of them. Okay, so do we have any other questions? Let me know. May we add garlic to the hummus? There was garlic in the hummus. I had garlic in the hummus. First, I put garlic into the food processor. Then I put the chickpeas and everything else. So the garlic was in there first. I think that was your question. So yes, of course, you definitely need garlic in your hummus. But of course, if you have a garlic intolerance, you won't have garlic in your hummus. Okay, you are so welcome, Orly, and thank you for joining. If anybody has any questions, I'm ready to take them. Otherwise, we are done. Delicious dish cooking, follow. Hope everybody has a wonderful day. Oh, great to see you. Food being made live. Okay, great. Join me, Anne. We have lots of this. I love cooking, guys, and I love cooking with people. So whether you're at home and I'm not really seeing you, I know you're there, and it's fabulous, and it's a great community we have here. And just keep cooking with me, and I'll keep cooking with you.
Carolyn, thank you so much. That was incredible. My mouth is watering as we speak. I'm not even kidding. It looked amazing. And
thank you.
Everyone for joining, and your comments and your likes mean a great deal. So you can find Carolyn online, as she said, delicious dish cooking, and delicious. Sorry, I'm messing this one up. Let's just make it clear for everyone.
Delicious dish cooking is Instagram.
Yes.
And then deliciousdish.ca is the website.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for joining us. Everyone, take care, stay safe, and we'll see you next time.
You're so welcome.